through your actions and through your words that you're worthy of being their boyfriend or girlfriend. You're constantly persuading your parents that you should receive certain things, that you should be able to not do your homework because you have some great reason, or you should be able to go out and stay out later with your friends because you have some great reason, or you should be able to go, whatever that is when you're in high school. I don't know what people are doing these days. People still go to the mall. You know, still go to the mall.
Yeah, that's the only thing here.
Yeah, it's too bad because that mall is really something. It's not good. I used to go to the mall when I was a kid. That's why I asked. The movies, and we used to go. You don't go to the movies anymore? Kids don't go to the movies. That's cool.
Chris is a local college.
Oh yeah, I graduated from Consol in 01, so same amount of, actually more stuff here than when I was here when I went to high school. So you have the Arctic skating rink. Is that cool, or nobody really goes to that?
It switches names. Wait,
yeah, they do like ice hockey or something. All right, anyways.
It was spirit isolated.
Got it. So you're all engaging in persuasion at some level, and for the rest of your life, no matter what you do, your employment and your family life is going to function under some level of persuasion. I mean, a high school teacher's job is to persuade you that you should care enough about education to do your best, and that education matters enough that you should care. Okay? A high school coach, Kevin Sumlin's job this year with the Aggie football team was to persuade them that if they listened to him and believed in what he told them, that they could be a better football team than anybody else thought that they could be. And obviously he persuaded them quite well because they had a great season. So every one of us at some level is doing a lot of persuasion. Now a salesperson, they're doing more persuasion, even formal persuasion than most of us are doing. They're trying to, whether it's a realtor or a car salesman or an insurance salesman, they're trying to convince you that whatever cost it would take for you to get their product is less than the benefit you would receive from that product. That's persuasion. So for me, I think the three levels, I mean, the first one, probably I don't need to talk about much. I think the facts of modern day slavery are pretty strong. I think they're pretty compelling. I think a video like the one you watched helps us get those facts out there and to begin to appeal to you emotionally. I think sometimes if you're a visual person, somebody talking all day is not going to make a big difference to you. But when you actually get to see it yourself, that's when you really begin to, make a big difference. Like on our social media stuff, we always have more likes and comments and interaction with people when we post a picture of the kids than when we just post written words about the kids. There's something about that visual appeal that compels people. And then, the third thing that Mr. Graham said, I mean, I think for us, in building people's trust, I think one of the things that we've done pretty well, even though I wasn't real comfortable with it when we first started, but we had a board member that really pushed me on this, and that's that from the very beginning, and Mr. Graham's known me for 2 years, so almost the whole life of Mercy Project, he's known me and heard me talking about it. And that 2-year span is from we had done nothing but identified the problem, to now we have some skins on the wall, and our budget's pretty big, we've hired some people, we're having some pretty good success. So he's kind of seen the whole gamut. But I think he would say from day one, we were really honest that we didn't have all the answers. And that's a pretty big difference from a lot of nonprofits who want to, they're scared to sort of admit, hey, we don't know all the answers here. There's going to be things we do that are wrong. There's going to be mistakes that we make, people we hire that end up not working out for us, Ghanaians that we hire that end up not working out for us, villages we think are ready to partner that aren't ready to partner. I mean, those things are going to happen. We can't avoid those things, so we're not going to pretend that we can. And I think that's one of the ways we've gained a lot of credibility with people is that when we've been honest and saying, hey, we can say with certainty that there's a problem in Ghana, and we can say with certainty that we want to help fix the problem. What we can't say with certainty is that we're not going to screw up in that attempt. But we're going to do our very, very best, and when we do mess up, we're going to correct those mistakes and try not to do it a second time. And so people have responded, I think, to that kind of transparency, and that, that's kind of the opposite of what the government in America has done. I'm not talking recent, I'm talking our whole lives, that everyone in the world always tries to hide their mistakes and pretend stuff didn't happen, right? And it's probably what happened with manti-teo, right, is that, I mean, likely he knew the deal. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? He likely knew that he had been duped. I don't think he was in on it. It's my personal commentary. I don't think he was in on it, but I think he knew. But then I think he kept telling the story because it was benefiting him. So instead of, I mean, that's embarrassing to say, wow, I was duped. I mean, I thought somebody pulled a fast one on me for like years. But instead of just coming clean, and he wouldn't be in any of the mess he was in now if he had just said, the day he found out, somebody fooled me. I am embarrassed, somebody fooled me. Everybody would have been so mad at the person who did it. And they would have talked about how he was truly a victim. But now everybody's mad at him. And he may not even get drafted nearly as high as he was going to because there's all these questions now about his integrity and how much did he know, how much did he not know, has he been honest? I mean, so I think people want you to be honest, and it doesn't give you license to be lazy or to purposely make mistakes, but to just say, okay, this is a big deal, this is hard, this is deep, this is complex, and we're going to make some mistakes along the way. So, I mean, I hope that you have anything specific, I mean, besides that you want me to add to persuasion?
No, I think that's good. You know, I think what you said with the trust thing, especially as an organization, a nonprofit, that obviously seems to be kind of the crux of what has to happen with if someone's going to give you their time, their energy, their money, that has to be in place. That seems to be the foundational thing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, giving people whatever it is they want from you. I mean, like by law, a nonprofit has to give you their financial documents. Anybody who asks for them, they're open for public records. So, you know, being really transparent about that, and sometimes that's not like my favorite thing about my job. You know, sometimes that like anybody in the whole world can figure out how much money I make, and there's this kind of weird, like, you know, balance between being successful at something and being paid for it, and, you know, the fact that you are working in a nonprofit, and it's kind of just a weird tension that you're in there that's hard. But I think just kind of acknowledging that you are, you know, your financial records are open book. You're not hiding anything. You're willing to kind of share anything that you have. That gives people a lot of confidence.
Well, I would say this. I'm going to open the floor to these guys. They have good questions. I've seen Chris speak many times, and he's a very persuasive guy. And I don't think that the thing I think that's really effective with him is he's not going in trying to win your dollar or win your opinion. He's just going in with, like he said, that transparency and just knowing that he believes so strongly in what he's doing that it kind of overflows from what's going on. And so it's hard not to have that kind of spillover on the people around him when he speaks. And so I think that's always been a really effective thing that he's harnessed and that has become really natural. And so I think you'll see that with life in general with people who speak. If they're not passionate about what they're speaking about, you see it with some of your teachers, you might see it with me some days, you don't buy into what they're talking about. Whether it's logical or it's ethical or whatever, whatever approach they try to use for persuasion, if they're not passionate about it, they don't have that kind of fourth degree of persuasion, it's not going to really hit home with most of us. And so I'm honored to know that I've seen Chris speak many times and that passion has never wavered. So
yeah, I think you have to believe in whatever it is that you're, you know, trying to talk about or trying to sell. If it's something you're selling, you know, it has to be something that you really, you know. I think Kevin Sumlin genuinely believed A&M could beat every single team on their schedule last year, way before any of the players believed that, right? Where he was like, that wasn't him selling that, like, oh gosh, we're going to get crushed by Alabama. It was like, from day one, he was like, we can beat anybody, believe it, we can beat anybody. And at first it's like, yeah. And also players are like, you know what, maybe he's right, maybe we can. And then all of a sudden, but, you know, he can't waver in that. Or else everybody, I mean, you saw that the year before with Mike Sherman, you know, so yeah, I think that's a big deal for me. You know, I believe in this, and last thing I'll say, you know, when we started this, I was surrounded by people who loved me deeply and who wanted us to succeed, but didn't think we probably would, because it was such a huge problem we were trying to tackle. And I mean, you know, I've never done it because I don't want to, but, you know, if you polled my family, I'm sure, you know, some of them would say, oh, I mean, we didn't think there's any way you guys would, you know, ever get to the point where you were rescuing kids. And I think, you know, that's okay. They weren't selling it. It was me that had to believe it, right? Because I was the one that was having to go out and convince people of that.
Cool. Let's turn to you guys. Yesterday, you guys shared some of your questions. It doesn't have to be the same people. But if you have a question you want to ask Chris, especially after hearing him speak just now, that kind of popped in your head or it's on your piece of paper, you can raise your hand, and I'll call on you. You can ask your question. So the floor is yours. any question you have. Or I'll just revert to the popsicle sticks and I'll hear from you either way.
Boom, popsicle sticks. I'll do that, guys.
Let's start with Blake. You had a good question yesterday, Blake. Would you ask that same question? Do you remember which one it was?
I always like questions from guys in ties.
Oh, yeah.
This is good. It's my preference.
When you go to like Ghana and help them out, well, how did the people, like the villagers, feel about getting help?
Yeah, good question. So you saw in the video, which is so helpful that you guys saw the video, the cages that we're doing, right? You saw the cages. So, because what we're doing is different than what any organization's ever done in Ghana before, in that we're coming in and asking them if they would partner with us to bring themselves a better life, and as a byproduct of that, also help the kids. So we don't go in there saying, give us the kids, I can't believe it, you are rotten people for having bought these kids, how dare you, that we say, hey, you probably need some help economically, this is a village that's struggling, could we partner on that help? And they always say, absolutely, let's do it. And then we can say, we can show you a new way to fish, but in trade, we need you to give up trafficked kids, because our goal is for these kids to go back to their families and have a good life. But because we've persuaded them with the idea of making their life better first, before we say anything about the kids, they're very receptive to it. We were shocked when you were at the thing at Live Events that night, right? I don't have time to do it justice to have set up the whole cultural thing for you, but when we rescued the first group of kids, 24 kids, we were blown away that when we got ready to walk out of the village with them, that masters had put them in the best clothes they could find, and that they had handed them like small bills so that they had money to buy like snacks on the way to the shelter. Like, that blew our minds, and it just reminded us that the village did not see us as taking the kids. They genuinely viewed themselves as giving the kids, right? You see the difference there? That they felt like they had ownership of the process. It wasn't, here come the Americans taking our kids. It was like, hey, we get to launch these kids to go have a better opportunity, and we're proud of the role we played in that. And I could spend days telling you why I think makes all the difference in the world when it comes to really fixing the problem, like deep, deep-rooted cultural problem, the difference in them believing in it versus us being the only ones who believe in it. So they receive us well. Never been threatened. Everybody likes us pretty well. It helps that Ghana's a very safe country. No violence. Very little violence.
Other questions? Good question, Blake.
Yeah. No tie, but...
State your name. State your name.
I'm Jared. And in the video, I saw, like, after you, like, take care of them for a couple years, you return them to their family.
Yeah.
How do you react to the parents who gave up their children?
Yeah, good question. So you saw in the video why the parents usually give up the kids, because they're impoverished and poor and can't afford to feed the kids. So it's really actually months instead of years that the kids are in rehabilitation shelters. So like the kids we rescued on September 29th, the first group, the very first ones actually go back to their families this next week, like Monday through Friday of next week. 11 of the 23 kids will go back to their families. And we don't have any hard feelings towards the parents. I mean, it's like your first question on there, your second question. I mean, what would you do, if you're in a situation where you're like literally watching your kids starve to death, and somebody comes along that you feel like is going to have the capacity to take better care of them. People do this in America. I mean, there's people in America that say, I can't afford to take care of my kid like I'd like to be able to, so they just leave it on the doorstep of the fire station, all those little safe, things that you see all over town. It's like you can leave your baby there and nobody's going to arrest you for it if you can't take care of it. So imagine a place in Ghana where there's no soup kitchens, no Goodwills, no Salvation Armies, no Twin City missions, nothing to help people who are struggling, and they have those kids. I mean, just the situation's that much worse. So we're very empathetic to the parents. The three things we do when we return the kids: one, we pay for their first 2 years of school because we know the parents can't afford to do that. Two, we give the moms, usually it's just the moms, every once in a while it's a mom and a dad, we give them a small stipend, like a micro loan so that they can maybe start some sort of little